Hello and welcome along to the Eurozone show. It's not about the financial doom and gloom in Europe, as you may have guessed from the opening titles. It's about football and all the beautiful action we've seen at Euro 2012, or maybe not in the quarter-final so far. We'll discuss that on our panel today because it's all about analysis and European insight. We've got top writers, top players who have played the game, and it's all intelligent and very, very knowledgeable, but punctuated by raw passion on the panel today because we've got Mina Rzouki feeling outnumbered. She lives in London, but Italian heritage and Azzurri to the core, surrounded by former England international Luther Blissett, who's paid me £50 again to remind us that he scored a hat-trick on his England debut all those years ago, and Angus Loughran, an aficionado of the sport, and an Englishman to the core as well. Guys, welcome. Battle lines drawn. Mina, do you feel outnumbered?
I feel outnumbered and I'm feeling very pessimistic.
Yes. Well, Luther, how do you feel? Because you've got, you know, you say you live in London, brought up in London. You've got a kind
I'm
of,
English.
You've got a foot in both camps to a certain extent, and so have you a little bit. You played for the Rossoneri of AC Milan back in the 80s for that season where you didn't get the ball much, but you enjoyed your time there.
How about you support Italy and I'll support England?
I don't know if I could do that really. No, I can't really go down that one at the moment. For me, I'm quite optimistic, I think, about this one for England. I mean, I have been really from the word go.
Yeah.
From the tournament was done, and they made the draw, and everybody's so pessimistic. Oh, look at what we got. We can't even get out of this, all that sort of thing. I'm thinking, no, it'll be fine. It's actually quite a refreshing change that everybody's always thinking, oh, we're going out even before we started. So we're starting from there. So, you know, we built, and it's gathered momentum game to game.
That hype and expectations growing a little bit.
It is great.
We're favourites suddenly.
Yeah, but quite right. I'm not sure about us being favourites, but I think quite rightly now, you know, the expectation should be there now because you can see the finishing line. And let's face it, the reason why you're in the tournament for is to get to the end. And, you know, you've got to deal with each game in turn, which they've managed to do so. People are going ahead and talking about Germany, but this today against the Italians is a very, very difficult game for us today.
England's quarter-final record, not great. We will talk about England's quarter-final record in due course as well, guys. But let's reflect on what we've seen so far at the tournament. In the quarter-final stage, particularly 1-0 for Portugal against Czech Republic, Germany 4, Greece 2, and last night, Spain against France. What do you make of Spain against France? Was it as boring as a lot of people are saying this morning? Angus, you know, what do you think of that?
I don't think it was a great advert for the Euros because last night. I thought it was a workmanlike win for Spain and a very disappointing, almost no-show from France. I mean, you know, I was disappointed in the French contribution to last night. I felt that it would have been a closer game than it was. Spain didn't play well, but they were comfortably winning 1-0 and they added a late penalty to make it 2-0.
So it reminded me of, Luther. I know, obviously, I played a little bit of football, semi-pro level, but you know, you have those games in training where it's like, not at your level, but when you go, get 5 passes and you get a goal, it's like and you go about 2 yards apart from each other and start tapping. It's almost like what Spain do, isn't it?
But we say that about Spain, but you know, Spain, they believe, keep the ball and keep the ball moving, which is a good way to do it. Because in training, you always say, keep the ball moving. You're always shouting, keep the ball moving when you're coaching. So they do that. They get it, they give it, they give it, they give it, and they get great movement interchange. The one thing they don't do is actually look to go forward too early. So they make you open up by getting frustrated and then come trying to get onto them, and then they play through you.
Them into submission, literally passing them into submission.
And Alba looks the best penetration for them, and he's a left back. And what about Laurent Blanc? Did he bottle it by playing 2 right backs against him?
I mean, that was the whole point. I mean, he put so much faith on the fact that, you know, Jordi Alba is their best, you know, fullback going forward. So he thought, well, if we overload the wing, then we can, you know, we'll leave Alba alone because he's not really that good. And Spain don't seem to believe in him attacking-wise either. But, you know, we sit here and we're talking about how wonderful Spain are. But, I mean, what did they do in the second half, really? I mean, it was just a poor showing from the French team. And there was no heart. You can tell that probably the friction and the fighting that they had after the Sweden game came out onto the pitch. You know, nobody was tracking back. I don't know what Malouda was there for. I haven't.
He wasn't tracking back, was he, for the first goal?
Obviously not. Ribery did nothing on his part. The midfield was wide open because they were so concerned with what Alba was doing. Alba, really, I mean, not that he is a great fullback, but the fact that you just left the midfield there with Xabi Alonso, I'd much. You
see that I can't
guys,
understand.
Let's get the view from Spain about what their perception of both the Los Rojos and Les Bleus last night. Tim Stannard joins us, 442 specialist from Madrid at La Liga Loca on Twitter. Tim, good to talk to you. What was the reaction in Spain before the game when they saw Anthony Revlieri and Debuchet both lining up on that left-hand side? Was that a kind of white flag from the off?
No, I think they thought it was going to be a very, very long line of tension where they needed a lot of patience, and it did turn out that way. Although it was a comfortable 1-0 win in the end. There was that phase in the second half where France was starting to push a little bit. Spain weren't creating enough chances. Again, they had all the possession. So it was a lot of relief, basically, when Xabi Alonso scored that penalty, and they were delighted to beat France. They've never, ever beaten France in an official game before, which is something they managed to do. So it was a tough night for the Spanish to watch that game, rather than not because they thought it was boring, which seems to be the view from the rest of the world, but because it was a difficult match.
Yeah, hope springs eternal, isn't it, given that.
Just wanted to ask a quick question. When you are over there in the press in Spain, are they thinking, wow, what a glorious victory, or are they thinking, my God, France gave us nothing?
Well, no, because while it's 1-0 and you're wasting chances and not creating chances, anything can happen. Just a lucky free kick or something like that. So they weren't really focusing on the French. I think they thought the French were occasional flashes of danger, very occasional in the first half. There was a couple of moments when they put some moves together, but they said largely didn't do a huge amount. But again, the problem in Spain at the moment is that people are very, very tense, and when you're only winning 1-0, or in that Croatia game, going for the draw, you could say, it's very uncomfortable viewing for the Spanish at the moment. They're by no means thinking, hey, old school Italian, we're 1-0 up, we're going to win this game. It was very, very nervous for them. They didn't enjoy the match at all for that reason.
Tim, they rely on Xabi Alonso, who's not known necessarily for his goal scoring. I know he does well for Spain. He plays a slightly different role than he did at Real Madrid and Liverpool because of Busquets being alongside him. But when they look at the next game in the semi-final, do they need to find more penetration? And what about this man, Fernando Llorente? Because Torres keeps coming on and, apart from when he plays Ireland, who have played like a pub team in the tournament, he doesn't look that impressive. Surely Llorente or Negredo will get an opportunity at some point.
It seems not. No, it seems that Del Bosque is sticking with this formula, which for him is working at the moment. And it's a real shame that Llorente's not seen a minute. Pedro actually got some action last night, so another one of those players who hadn't played much. But Llorente's still stuck there, so he's sticking with either Cesc or Silva or Torres up front. The interesting battle, I think, is from the Spanish perspective and the Real Madrid perspective is going to be Coentrao and Ronaldo against Sergio Ramos and Arbeloa. That could get a little bit tasty out on the right-hand side. I think we're very much looking forward to that. However, Spain have 2 days less to prepare for that game because of the way the format's been worked out, which is a little bit strange. So I think there's going to be a lot of Real Madrid-Ronaldo focus here.
Luther, what do you think about Spain and how they approach this game? Will it be a false number 9 again against Portugal in the semi-final?
Worked for them so far.
No. I mean, I think they've really not having Villa there I think, has been a massive loss for Spain because he gives them that one thing when they go forward is an outlet, and he gives them the variety about the way they go forward. And yes, he's played from the wide position, or he can play in the middle.
Gets behind
teams
bit, doesn't he?
So he's always looking to do that. It's a different game when you play with somebody like Torres because you need to hit Torres early with the ball. And Spain don't do that. They keep it. So you say maybe it might be a shout, as you say, for them to play. Is it Llorente to play in and give him that opportunity to do that because he probably is the one.
He did well against Portugal, didn't he, in the World Cup as well? He changed the game, I think, in 2010, Tim. But what about what you expect from Portugal in them? Because you saw France rapidly alter the way that they played. Obviously, Mene wasn't involved, Nasri wasn't involved, two of their most potent attacking midfielders. Do you expect Portugal to go for it though with their 4-3-3 and play Nani against Alba and perhaps limit him by making him stay back because of the fear of Portugal on the counter-attack?
I think on this stage you're not going to see Cristiano Ronaldo giving up the ball to anyone. I think it's going to be a bit of a solo show from him. It's two very different sort of mentalities, I think. France were perhaps not completely confident in themselves, maybe expecting to do a little bit better in the tournament than they had to. Obviously that Sweden game affected them. But with Portugal, I think they're just going to be very happy to be there. So I think they're really, really going to take the game to Spain. I think, again, it's going to be 60-40% possession. But I do fancy Portugal to surprise them, perhaps, because Spain only created 3 shots on goal last night. And again, they're hanging on in there with 1-0. When you do have Ronaldo in the form he's in for Portugal, you can easily see Portugal scoring, and Spain simply aren't scoring enough at the moment. It's going to be a tight one, and this is why it could be extra time and penalties this game, I feel, for the semi-final.
Tim, now I know that, last week we were talking about Del Bosque and the fact that you can never sort of go against him because he's a World Cup winning coach. Are there any doubts creeping in about his choices, and do you think that he's so firm on the fact that he's going to play this type of way, despite the fact that it's been criticised that they are a very horizontal team? Iniesta's providing a vertical edge. I mean, not really a player that you should rely on for that, maybe.
Dribbles more for Spain,
but,
doesn't he?
Yeah, that's probably why he does. And now Jordi Alba giving them something of a Dani Alves, but do you think that he's sort of standing firm on something that perhaps he shouldn't be standing firm on? Are there any doubts creeping in about the ability of the coach?
He's playing his mates. A lot of people say, don't they? He's playing the people he likes and the most popular characters.
There were for a few days after the group stages, and then there was the backlash to the backlash, where other papers, other people came in saying, again, who are we to Del Bosque? He's delivered us the World Cup. We're still doing okay in the European Championships. There's a long way to go, so let's see what happens at the end. People would like to see a striker coming on, but now it's kind of accepted that they just have to do what Del Bosque thinks. And again, they didn't lose to Italy, which is something they always traditionally do. They've now beaten France for the first time in history. So, yeah, for them, there's a few grumbles. I'd like to see Llorente play, I think, a little bit more. However, they're still willing to trust him, and with good reason.
Tim, the optimism generally in the country, is it high? Both the Portugal game and the final potentially against Germany, England or Italy. Do they feel confident getting a third tournament in a row? Because if it is Germany in the final again, of course, that's a repeat of 4 years ago, but a strong sense that this is a lot better German side this time around.
It's a very weird atmosphere in Spain. 2 years ago, there really was a buzz and there really was excitement and momentum. But when you speak to people today, the football is very much second place, which is unusual for a country like Spain. The economic problems they're having at the moment, when you speak to people in shops or in bars, it's like, okay, if we win, it'll be nice, but it's not going to change our situation next morning. So there isn't really that excitement that high. So there's a sense of pessimism, perhaps simply because there's a national sense of the mood is pessimistic at the moment. I think they'll fancy their chances against Portugal, but against Germany, that's going to be tough. But then again, how many times have we seen teams like Germany flying through the tournament and then come across in the semi-finals or the final and suddenly slowing down? Spain are slowly building up momentum. They certainly moved up another gear, I thought, against France, but there's a lot of room for improvement, which is the main positive thing for them. They can get a lot better.
They're just not facing any teams that want to look them in the eye and take them on, that this is the thing. France has just put out a team that was just reacting to them solely, that barring Italy and Croatia, what am I talking about? Barring Italy, who tried to take them on and actually attack, Croatia defended with all their hearts. Republic of Ireland had nothing to give. And I just feel like this is the way it is. And there is a chance that they will go into the final and they may face Germany, who, if they do decide to go and start defending and playing with, Hedera and Schweinsteiger playing deep, then it's going to be very disappointing, because once again, what's happened is people have rolled over for Spain.
I think Portugal are going to give them that kind of boot up the backside that Spain needs to really, really get going. So I think that semi-final, I think it's going to be a tough one. I think that might make them raise their game a lot more and perhaps prepare them for the final should they get there. So I think it's going to be a really good head-to-head clash. I think it's going to be pretty exciting. Again, players like Ronaldo are not going to roll over. They're going to be going for them.
It certainly is. Tim, fantastic to speak to you as ever, sir. You set the scene delightfully. Seems cautiously optimistic in Spain. We'll catch up with you again next week on the Eurozone show for the final. We'll see who'll be there.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers, Tim. Well, that is it for the first part of the show. We've heard the verdict from Spain. Coming up after the break, very interesting to see what the French mood is after Laurent Blanc perhaps blew it tactically in the big moment for the Bleus. Back in a few moments' time. Hello, welcome back to the Eurozone show. The panel in full swing now as we dissect the quarter-finals so far. We are, of course, starting with Spain, France. We've talked a little about Spain and the ticky-tacky, which puts us all to sleep and most of their opponents to sleep, and then they score. I'm only kidding. I know it's very. Some people like it. It divides the globe as to whether we like the way they play or not.
Controversial start to the second half then.
What we could probably start with, and not in disagreement, I'd imagine, Luther, is France's tactics. 23 games unbeaten, then they lose to Sweden, and then Laurent Blanc suddenly out of nowhere decides the old double right back's the way forward. What do you make of that? What message did that send out?
Well, I mean, you go out. Yeah, they've had a bit of a dodgy game against Sweden. We can all see that, fine. But you go out and you know you're playing what is the world champions, and you've got to go out there and have a go.
Yeah.
At this stage, you think if we're going to go out and they're going to beat it, let's go out. We're not going to go gung ho and leave it so they can just play through us, but we're going to have a go at them. Set yourself up accordingly to do so. And he's gone completely the other way. He's gone, look, we'll do that, and let them come on to us. And then what makes it worse on top of that, they then don't even have a go at getting at them when they get the ball. I mean, that's the thing that I cannot understand, because one thing you do is you soak up that pressure, but when you get the chance, you go at them. You know, go back to when England played Spain in October, whenever it was. England played deep, defended well, and they did defend well. Yes, Spain weren't great on the day, but again, that showed that they, without Villa, they are not the same team. Without him, going in
Because
the
they
team.
say Alba provides the most penetration,
Yeah.
and after all that good work, it's in theory
You
for
need-
Blanc. That's where the goal
you need
came
somebody-
from.
you
after
need
90
somebody
minutes.
at the sharp end.
Who faces the Spanish side and decides to go gung ho on the wings? You know,
Yeah.
it's not. You know, generally speaking, when you think of Spain, you think, oh, we've got to defend deep, we've got to defend narrow because that's where they're the most powerful. And then they've gone, oh, Jordi Alba is all about Jordi Alba, and they've shoved on all these spaces, left goals, you know, gaps in midfield that let Xabi Alonso go in, and it's quite shocking tactics, to be honest.
It was.
We had the reaction from Spain, haven't we, from Tim Stanley. Let's get the thoughts from the French camp. Law James joins us for Skype, been a regular on the Eurozone show for the past few weeks. And Law, with sensing that France really somewhat choked a little bit, both Laurent Blanc in his selection and the team on the pitch. What's the mood from Le Bleu media?
Surprisingly positive. You may know I've covered Northern Ireland international football for a number of times, and I've seen this on so many other occasions. But with France, it's really, really surprising. L'Équipe traditionally give very, very low ratings. They gave Hugo Lloris a 7.
Wow.
Their assessment was essentially quite philosophical in the way that, you know, the plan didn't work. We didn't humiliate ourselves. We gave it everything we had. And Spain are very, very good. Personally, I think that's glossing over several issues. I know you've already discussed about, you know, were Spain that great last night? No, not particularly. There was moments that France pushed forward, and we've seen earlier in this competition that the goals have come from when they have had the confidence and the velocity to go forward, but nothing last night, and I think there were things that were inexcusable.
No, you spoke about the confidence and all of that, and you spoke about the fact that, you know, France is a team that, you know, has suffered before when it comes to team fighting and all of that. Do you think, you know, how about 2 weeks ago we were talking about the fact that they don't really have leaders on the pitch now, and they've obviously made, you know, Lloris their goalkeeper, their actual captain. Do you think this has been a problem for them? Because there hasn't been really someone who's been like, come on guys, we can do this, let's fight with heart. There was some
Ribery looked miserable last night,
yeah,
didn't he?
there was heart
Surly.
missing there. They weren't playing with everything that they wanted to play. You see, it was almost a bit like not interested.
No, absolutely. I think the only vocal one we've really seen this tournament is Ribery. Personally, I think the only players at Euro level within the squad at the moment are probably Diarra, Debuchy, Ribery, Lloris, I will give him, and Cabaye. In fact, Johan Cabaye after the game put it perfectly. He said, you know, it wasn't necessarily last night. It was the game against Sweden which highlighted those problems. The confidence we had seen came before then.
So, yeah, but 2 of France's 3 goals in the tournament come from Mene and Nasri. So what is the reaction in the media of Laurent Blanc deciding not to play what looked like 2 of their best attacking players in this game?
Yeah, negative. Nasri unfortunately hasn't made himself any friends.
No.
During the mixed zone. There were confrontations between him and agency journalists.
We hear.
There were exchanges of, you know, quite unsavoury from both parties, I understand. Sort of unsavoury exchanges, and eventually it ended with Nasri saying, "Well, you know, away on, you can go and write about how I've been so badly brought up." So there are clearly, you know, there's clearly friction.
Has there been feuding? Because has there been feuding in the camp? Because there's been sort of murmurs of that again.
Again, it's only hearsay and nothing's been officially reported. That was the first instance that I've seen of something being officially reported, because obviously it had been done in the presence of media and directed at media, which is foolish. But I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised. I think the players probably know that Laurent Blanc is looking out of that position anyway, and you know that he's been linked to clubs. So it's not going to be. There's no incentive for them to, you know, continue to gel and show some discipline.
Lord, do you think they flattered to deceive? Because, you know, when you went on a 23 unbeaten streak, you know, I mean, in Italy, we were really happy we lost to Russia, because we thought, oh, that means that, you know, we're not going to go in with our heads held high. We're going to start working because we can lose. Now, do you think the fact that they've walked in with all this confidence, being like, oh, we're unbeaten, we've been fantastic in the last 23 matches, that they've sort of gone in, lost to Sweden and thought, oh my God, we can't do this now, you know, like we've just discovered holes in our team. Do you think that...
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good point. Absolutely. Sweden was the crux for it. Admittedly, everybody thought that we would draw Italy and maybe have an easier ride. But
Hey.
that even would have happened.
So what now for Laurent Blanc then? You mentioned his future there. Is he going to Tottenham? Or will the big clubs, Luther, you coming on this as well, will the big clubs look at that tactically and think, we don't necessarily want a guy who's reactive in his tactics, we want someone who's positive and proactive in the way he approaches games?
No, I don't think it will make too much of an injury. I mean, it might be on a deciding one, depending who he's maybe up against in the final mix. They might say, this might sway one or the other, but they'll look at what he's done in the 20-odd games that he's done and the way he's turned French football around since the World Cup. You know, the way things have been going. And, I mean, that's more what they'll focus on and take it from there, I should imagine. So I mean,
Laura, will he go to Tottenham then? Is that smart money, or is VS Boas?
When I heard that Harry Redknapp had been shown the door, I thought, Blanc will be out of a contract within a couple of weeks, so don't look any further. There's still reports that it's essentially a two-horse race between him and Andre Fierber's. Mina perhaps will know a little bit more about this. Inter have been linked to him as well, and of course he played there for a couple of years in the late 90s. Chelsea, I think, have linked, but originally he was tipped to be Alex Ferguson's successor. I think Tottenham would be quite a good bet.
Yeah, well, I think he'd be gone for about another 35 years, Fergie, at the moment, when he's never shown any signs of letting up into his 70s.
That's true, yeah, don't hold your breath.
But another word, because we had to do our predictions pre-tournament, and one of mine was France to win it. I don't know why, I was rushed into this prediction, and I was flustered at the time. It was France to win it, and I went with Karim Benzema. Neil said to me, the producer, said, well, if you go with France to win it, do you want Benzema as top scorer? And I said, yeah, go on then, we'll do that. Nil point for him, though, from the tournament. What do you make of his performances? What was the French media made of his performances?
To quote Raymond Domenech, who's weighed into this morning. I read that he said, I'm disappointed for French football overall. The individual errors being made are maddening, he described them as. And he said it's impossible to play like that in a real competition. A tournament, essentially, a competitive tournament. He also said there's too much individualism, and he blamed Benzema for that. He described him as being sinful. Being
Raymond Domenech was such a fantastic French manager with such a fearless record, wasn't he, there in 2010. Laura, it's been fantastic to speak to you. Angus, a quick question?
Well, I just wanted to say, I mean, bear in mind that Spain are in the same group as France in the qualification for the next World Cup. Is that something that's already being talked about now, in the French media?
I haven't seen anything this morning. I think it's just been it's been fallout, but I'm sure come colour copy tomorrow that will be mentioned definitely.
Yes.
I think it's more. You could pit them against anyone in any group. That's not the issue. You're going to have to find a new manager. You're going to have to look. I think you're going to have to cast your net far further for players as well. There's already criticism about those who didn't turn up, such Lyon midfielder Rio Mavuba could have gone. Johan Gorkov, of course. There's so many others there. So fingers crossed that there are the options.
Well, Laura, fantastic to speak to you as well. I'm not sure if we'll speak to you next week because French are out, but we will speak to you very soon. I've been told, we will speak to you next week anyway to get the continental perspective from the Gaelic side of things. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll speak to you again next week.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah, interesting that. I won't be backing France to win another tournament anytime soon. I won't be backing them maybe to make the 2014 World Cup with that Spain in the qualifying group. And talk about
it just
England
makes it interesting. I mean, one of those two teams is going to be in the playoffs. I mean, we've said before, those playoffs for the World Cup. I mean, you want countries like France and Spain both to be in a World Cup. I mean, yeah, it would be very disappointing.
I'm not so sure anymore.
Well, let's.
I think
you don't want Spain there anymore, do you?
I think the French have got some good players. I'm not sure that they all necessarily gelled. We've seen the best and the worst of France in the last 12 months.
I think Farage should have been called up as centre-back as well. I mean, I thought their centre-back options that they called up were just
three centre-halves, weren't they? Yeah. Well, let's leave the French to stew because they're very happy with that defeat, apparently content on the defeat to the world champions. Let's talk about Germany, who you can never imagine being happy with any kind of defeat. 4-2 win over Greece. They were the second favourites of the bookmakers going into the tournament. I believe now in most sort of offices across the bookmaking world, they've taken favouritism ahead of Spain. Perhaps not today because Spain are already through to the semi-finals.
They're still second favourites at the moment.
Are they? Still. Yeah. But what do we assess the victory over Greece? Because I thought there was a sort of glimmer of hope in the way that Salpingidis and Samaras exposed them a little bit sometimes. What do you think, Luther,
I think
if we get through?
I think there's always hope. And the thing I like about it is when England play them, usually the game is one of those all gloves off when they play Germany because they always think they can beat Germany.
Yeah.
And the Germans But the thing is, the Germans know they can beat England, and I think that's one of the big differences. England just need, in my opinion, just need to keep building on what they're doing, and if they do end up there, I know I'm jumping the gun a little bit.
Yes, you are a little bit.
If they end up facing England in that game, I think England's approach has got to be actually have a go, really go out and take them on. You've got to stretch them and make them have to defend, because the one thing that has been shown up in this tournament so far, when you make these top teams have to defend, you know, they've all come up short so far. Nobody's showed a really solid defensive thing for me. The closest have been Italy, because we know Italy do that anyway. They're always so well organised.
Well, let's
you know, look at all of this.
Before we start a raging debate about Italy's defence, let's bring in Raf Honigstein over the line or via Skype, of course. He's in Marcotti land, I understand, logged in Gabriel Marcotti's computer there. Raf, fantastic to speak to you, sir. We're talking about Germany not being tested. We talked about Spain not being tested. Do you sense that? Is there a weaknesses perhaps at the back that Greece touched upon that maybe no one else has yet elaborated on?
It's difficult to say. I think the Greeks, played a game that they also played very successfully against Russia, which is to really lull the opposition into this sort of false sense of security. And I think it was very difficult for the defence to stay switched on. I think the real test, as you said, might come against a team who'll attack a little bit more, with a bit more urgency, a bit more frequently. But I think that the problem was more in terms of level of concentration and perhaps the midfield getting sucked forward because they had the total dominance rather than any sort of intrinsic weakness. I haven't really seen it in this tournament. I think Mats Hummels' fantastic performances so far have solved a lot of problems that this back four had before they went into the tournament. So I don't think that they've looked that weak. I don't think so.
What was the reaction in Germany to the introduction of Schürrle, Rouse and Klose, both pre-match and post-match? Do they think it was a smart move pre-match, and do they think possibly this could be the way forward without Podolski and Müller and Gomez?
Well, there was a huge surprise. The news leaked a few hours before, but still nobody expected Löw to make 3 changes because he's shown himself to be very conservative in that respect in the past. He usually sticks with the players that have done it for him before. And in 2010, he only made 1 change in the whole tournament that wasn't enforced on him by a suspension, which shows you just how different his approach has been this time round. But I think it quickly became clear that it was A, a reflection on the strength and depth that they have this time round, and B, a very specific tactical decision to surprise the Greeks with players who are better suited against deep defending sides. And I think he sort of took the lessons from the earlier games where Germany did struggle a little bit to break down these opponents, and thought that different solutions were necessary. And it made me almost laugh a little bit when I read, here and there, that it was about resting players and Germany being complacent, because the opposite was actually true. I mean, they feared the Greek challenge so much that they felt it absolutely necessary to bench players like Podolski, Müller and Gomez. And I think at least 2 of them will still be on the bench come the semi-final.
Rafa, because I was actually doing the show, one of the shows when the starting lineup was announced, and I thought that probably why he had picked Schürrle was because he could shoot from outside the box, and then obviously Royce is, he is Rolls Royce, so he can actually get himself into clever positions, a tricky player, all of the pace thing. Do you think that now that he has noticed there are some weaknesses to their games, like to Müller's game, to Podolski's game, that he is going to be integrating a lot of these players going forward? And will we be seeing more of Götze at all?
Does it depend on the opponent as well?
Yeah.
If England or Italy, you talk about his adapting to the
more
opponent,
physical players
perhaps
against England, perhaps more, silky players against.
Yeah, it will depend on the opponents a little bit. I think Gomez, for example, might have a better chance to stay in if England were the opponents. Klose is the better fit for what Löw actually wants to do on the pitch, and you saw that Klose scored 1 goal, but he also made everyone else score goals. That's what he brings to the table. I think Schürrle showed himself to be a little bit raw in possession. He gave the ball away that led to the Greek equaliser. He also seemed to overplay it a little bit, dwelled on it too long in times. I think Royce will stay. But I think he'll shift to the left, and I think Müller will come in, and then between Klose and Gomez is a bit of a toss-up. but I wouldn't be surprised if Klose will stay in, because he brings up also, in my view, the best of Mesut Ozil, because he takes up the spaces that Ozil can then vacate and go a little bit deeper, picking up the ball and linking the game from an earlier position, which is really beneficial to a Germany team who perhaps in Bastian Schweinsteiger have one guy who hasn't quite found his passing range yet, and Ozil and Khedira together have stepped up for him.
There's 17 tournament goals now for Klose, 64 overall. I think 4 short of Gerd Müller.
Are we now starting to believe in Klose? Is this people
I don't think
starting to believe in
anyone's doubting
Klose?
Klose with those statistics, have they? I think people have been impressed with Gomez's goals so far. But Raf, I have to ask you, Italy are ranked 14th in the world according to the FIFA rankings out June 6th. England 6th in the world.
Madness.
Does that mean that you prefer to face Italy, or is it probably going to be England as the preferential opponent for the Germans?
Well, people are very divided about this. Some are saying England, with the recent history and the way that they're playing, is a much better fit than Italy, who are, of course, our biggest bogey team in international football. We've never beaten them in an international competition. They've destroyed the dreams of good German football teams over the years. And
Mina's cheering in the studio.
Psychologically, it wouldn't be the first option for some to play them. I tend to think in a different way. I think that England, the way they've played, might cause more problems than an Italy team who are a little bit between, who are in a transition, let's say. I mean, I think they are, under Prandelli, trying to move into a more expensive, into a more fluid, into a more balanced style. But of course, they still have the old defensive instincts and solidity at the back. But I think against Germany, with the way the German strengths are shaped, and perhaps slight weakness as far as pace is concerned at the back, Italy are a better fit, I think, tactically. But we'll see. I mean, we can't choose. Either way, it's going to be an absolute sensational semi-final on Thursday.
And one last thing, just one thing. Do you think that if you are to face Spain, that you would actually give them a contest, or would you be doing what France did and try to be a bit more defensive?
Well, I don't think France were defensive. I think France were just very clueless. They had a lot of the ball, but had absolutely no idea what to do with it. Germany had a lot less of the ball against Spain in 2010, had 1 shot on goal. I think France, with a bit of intelligence, could have had a lot more. So I think Germans will take encouragement from that game. I think they'll have the options up front to trouble Spain, and Spain don't seem to be as clinical when it comes to keeping possession. So I think it'll be much more even and balanced game. But first we have to get there, and I don't think anyone's really being overconfident of overcoming either England or Italy yet. I think people realise in Germany that's going to be a very tough game.
Oh, isn't that nice?
I think Joachim Löw has said that it's their 4th straight tournament semi-final, so impressive for Germany. Quick thoughts before we go, Raf, on what you've seen of the quarter-finals so far ahead of England and Italy. Is it, I guess, been a bit of an anticlimax after the group games that we saw?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, we didn't see that many goals, and we saw fairly cagey games. Portugal, I was a little bit disappointed because the first half they sort of completely forgot everything they're good at, and only in the second half they stepped it up. And I think if they'd scored earlier, we might have seen a lot more entertainment and better games. Spain, France was fairly dull, but I think it had more to do with France than with Spain. Spain do what they're doing and it works. You know, you can't expect them to change for the entertainment value of the world's public. That's not why they're the Euros. They're there to win. And it was down to France to find a way, and France were a huge disappointment, I think, and perhaps exposed just how overrated they were before they went to the tournament. And as far as Germany is concerned, I think you can see it positively. You can see this is a good German team that can still play a lot better. I think that was the conclusion that most people took from the Greek game. Germany were in complete control, always looked like they would win it, but still individually and collectively can find another level, and I think that bodes well for the team.
Well, Raf, fantastic to speak to you. We do hope, of course, that the German camp implodes in the week. Disruptions, Joachim Löw picks a horrible team in the semi-final, and this time next week when we speak to you, we're talking about England, or for Mina's sake, Italy in the final.
Italy.
Against Spain or Portugal. But thank you, sir, and enjoy your week.
Thanks.
Great speak to Ralph Honigstein with the German perspective as well. Very lucid, very fair and objective, I think, with that assessment. Coming back, we're going to talk probably not in an objective fashion because it's going to be Mina Rzouki all about Cristiano Ronaldo and that win for Portugal over the Czech Republic. More reflections on the Eurozone in a few moments' time. We're back on the Eurozone show. We have talked about Spain, we've talked about France, we've talked about Germany. We haven't perhaps given Greece enough credit, but we will reflect on them maybe if we have time. But it's all about Portugal 1, Czech Republic 0 as we look back on the quarter-finals now. And Cristiano Ronaldo, third goal in 2 games. Mina, as Lionel Messi turns 25 today. Ronaldo's delivering, isn't he?
Oh, you know what it is? I just feel bad that every time this player does anything, whether it's glorious or whether it's disappointing, it's, yeah, but is it as good as Messi? Yeah, but is it as disappointing as Messi? You know, and I just think, you know what, why can't we just appreciate him for how amazing he is? And I do think that a lot has to do, he's hated because of the fact that he's this kind of character that believes in himself and he's not so, you know, like you said, unassuming. He's perhaps, you know, a little bit better looking than Messi, a little bit more confident of himself.
He's about a foot taller.
His, you know, his girlfriend's perhaps the most beautiful woman on earth. So I think there's all these things add up to the fact that you just don't really want to like Ronaldo. But statistically, he's a great player. Maybe not in conversion rate, but he can match Messi.
Yeah, it's a lot of shots for his goals, doesn't he?
I mean, this guy runs more. I mean, he had 5 minutes on the ball, which I know sounds little, but it's a lot when you're against. The
average is 2 minutes.
5 minutes. 5 minutes is a lot in any game.
A lot. I mean, this goes to show this guy is wanting to lead Germany. Who I know they are not a bad team, but they are not a fantastic team, and I say this all the time. They are lacking so much creativity, you know, both in midfield and
in Portugal,
perhaps up top. They don't really have a great striker. They don't have a, you know, Nani's good, Ronaldo's good. I mean, Moutinho showed to be good, but there's no number 10. There's no deep lying midfielder.
Well, Luther, on that note, though, we saw Portugal in the first game of the tournament in Group B, losing 1-0 to Germany, but having chances. We saw Varela have a chance. We saw Nani have a chance. I think Pepe hit the bar.
It did, yeah.
With Ronaldo in form now, they must be confident, surely, of winning this thing.
I mean, they've got to be looking forward to that. But you know, their problem will always be who else is going to score the goals, and that's always a problem. You cannot just go to the tournament expecting Ronaldo to score all the goals.
No Postiga now.
You know, the likelihood he will do, because you know everything is shaping up in this tournament because it started so slow for him, and everybody's been on his back. Oh, he's not going to score. He's not scoring goals, whatever. And then suddenly, in the last couple of games, he just exploded, and you're seeing the true Ronaldo, especially second half in all the games that he's played so far. So, I'm looking forward to it, and I think it will be his tournament. I really do think it's going to be his tournament. It's built in that way because.
Angus, you've obviously, you know, it's your days as Statto, you're all about statistics in football and that kind of stuff.
Well,
in any other era, Ronaldo would be the greatest player. I mean, his stats
I saw a lot of Ronaldo. I watched a lot of Manchester United games during his era. I was lucky enough to see him before he came over to this country as well. I would say one thing about Portugal. I mean, we talk about teams relying on one player, and you know, England and. This is a man who's running that team completely. Without him, they're very ordinary. If you think how lucky they were to qualify, I mean, they really had to dig deep.
Go through a playoff,
Yeah, but I mean, they needed to win the last 2 games to get into the playoff anyway. They had a dreadful qualifying in the early start, and since Queiroz has left as coach of Portugal, things have gone better for them. And Ronaldo's finding form. And when you've got a player who is one of the 2 best players in the world. Him and Messi are probably, I think, on equal status. They're 2 outstanding.
Very different as well.
Yeah, they're different, but they are 2 global superstars. I mean, it's almost like tennis at the moment. We've got Murray behind 3 great players, Djokovic, Nadal and Federer. And we're in an era where, in certain sports, we've got certain people dominating. And I think it's great for the game that Ronaldo's now showing it in the tournament. And, you know, like, I don't think it would be the biggest shock in the world if Portugal were to reach the final. Because at the moment, Ronaldo, he will be up for that game against Spain.
Yeah.
And he is on fire.
And they beat Spain 4-0, didn't they, the last meeting as well in friendly.
Well, like Luther said, I mean, it's almost feeling like his tournament. And when you get a global superstar who hits form, he can be like Maradona showed in the last part of that World Cup after, of course, the infamous hand of God in '86. When a player hits big form, he can have a major influence in the tournament, and I think that's what we're going to see.
Well,
let's get a Portuguese perspective from Andy Brassel, or to make him sound more continental, Brussels, over the Skype here. Andy, good to speak to you. What has the reaction been in Portugal? What's the mood in Portugal like? Because we shouldn't forget that the Czech Republic didn't show up, and Michael Bilek didn't seem to have a tactic, and one of them was Celesi staying back, which seemed to give Czech Republic no outlet.
Well, I think people are pretty bullish because Portugal were very good in the second half. Again, they were tentative coming into the game. And I think that's a potential problem against Spain. The fact that every single game there's been a real pattern. Portugal starting very, very slowly, and that they can't afford to have like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, half hour off at the beginning of the game against Spain. But I think, as you were saying before, it's just the momentum of Ronaldo is what makes everyone feel so positive about things.
You're at the game,
why
Andy.
are you whispering?
Where are you, Andy? Are you in the media centre or something, are you?
I am. It's kind of a media centre stroke aircraft hangar.
Well, hopefully you won't get arrested by Ukraine or police or something like that. But Andy, what about the reaction to the France game against Spain and what that bodes for Portugal? Will the manager change things the way that Laurent Blanc did, Paulo Bento, or will he be more confident in his team? Will he play a 4-3-3? Will he push Nani up on Alba, and will he go for it?
Yeah, he has. Bento said the whole way along, it's the only way we can play. It's the only way we know how to play. And we're going to stick to our game the whole way, no matter who we're playing against. I think tactically things will change a little bit because Almeida will replace Postiga. Almeida's not quite as mobile, and he does encourage Nani and fullbacks, especially Jean Pereira, to get early crosses in. Whereas on the other side, it's a completely different threat, of course, because Ronaldo and Colin Cloud seek to get in behind. Yeah. So I think it's an interesting balance.
Yes, so Arbeloa will be perhaps the weak link, people say, for Spain. What about the central midfield? And I hear you've been singing the praises. You've written articles this week for soccernet.com on Moutinho, because he's going to have a bit of a tough challenge against Spain with their 6 central midfielders, isn't he?
Very, very possibly. But I think they've got the ideal balance that you want from a midfield 3. You've got someone who sits in Veloso, who's very good at distributing the ball as well. You've got Moutinho, who picks the passes, and then you've got Morelos, who makes the runs in. And I think the most encouraging thing, actually, about the Czech Republic game, even though Moutinho was outstanding and just seemed outstanding against Holland, just he was outstanding against Germany in the first game, I think he's Morelos' form because he's not really quite hit it yet. But in the second half against the Czech Republic, very, very encouraging. I think that power to get into the box is something that could test for.
Andy, I'm not gonna say too much about Moutinho because I know that he's provided some creativity, but I don't mean to be but he does tend to try to go for goal all the time, and it kind of shoots it up and it goes towards space. Do you think is that really what he should be doing? It's like he gets to the goal and every time he had a strike and he would balloon it over or something like that. I'm not sure. I mean, I know that everyone's been singing his praises, but don't you think that he's a little bit, sometimes his decision making isn't that great?
No, I think he needs to stick to what he's good at, Mina. And I think there's definitely been something from the top saying he's recognised all the way along, a bit like Luka Modric, who I think he's quite a similar player to, that he doesn't have enough of a go at goal. And I think people have said that to him. And he did have one terrific check and a really, really good save. So I think that's probably a directive. He's at his best really when he's passing. But the first game against Germany where he threaded that one right through the centre of the defence, where Boateng just stopped Ronaldo scoring at the last minute, where he helped to create Ronaldo's goal and the second goal against Holland. That's what he's best at. But I think there is some sort of desire from the coaching team for him to get into more, and that's something he's really going to have to work on.
Andy, one word before you go: Spain or Portugal? Who makes the final?
Portugal.
Lovely. Andy Vassell, good to speak to you, sir. We'll catch up with you next week on the Eurozone, hopefully reflecting for your sake on Portugal in the final against England, or as we keep saying, Italy. A quick word on the Czech Republic team from what we saw. Not a lot. Michael Billick, what was his tactics? Because Gabriel Salesi, their right back, was their best attacking outlet, and then they kept him back.
They kept him back, and when you do that, when you a little bit like, I mean, if you stop your most potent asset from doing what he's good at doing, then you've got nothing left in your team, and that's pretty much what their performance was like. And I mean, not really a massive surprise, really, what they ended up doing.
Because I mean, go for the penalties. I can't see what else their game plan was.
They're doing that literally from the kickoff, weren't they?
Yeah, that was it. It was like, let's just defend with our hearts and hope they don't get there. And you know what? They nearly didn't get there. So
I mean, the thing is as well, on top of that, you did mention that the slow start that Portugal have had.
Yeah.
And they tend to do that, and I can't figure out why. And it's probably got a lot to do with, for me, is getting Ronaldo into the right areas in the game at the right time. I think sometimes what he starts off too wide and stays wide for too long. When he starts to drift off that line and pick the ball up.
You said you play him striker in the next game, because that's right. You play him up front.
I play him up top. The reason I play him up top is that you'd give him the freedom to go anywhere he likes.
Yeah.
Sorry, but correct me, didn't he play that role under Carlos Queiroz? And under the last coach, he was given all the responsibility to do everything, yeah? And I think when he's played in the same role, that one on the right, on the wing, where he has played in Real Madrid, he is very familiar with that position. He can cut inside, he can stand outside, he can do more. Meanwhile, he can use his pace on the wings and take on players and threaten a lot of fullbacks who, let's be honest, we haven't seen very many great fullbacks in this Euro tournament.
They're getting less and less, I think.
If he's getting up front and up top, it's again so much pressure that what Queiroz put him on. And I think there's something about this Portugal. It's a happier Portugal under their new coach, under Bento. They, everyone's got their positioning in place, and I think there's more balance to the squad.
He didn't like Queiroz, did he, Ronaldo? Well, Mina, we'll come back afterwards. We know you're the expert. You've watched every minute of Ronaldo's career, and very happy he's doing well. Will Glenn Johnson handle him in the final if England get there? It's not going to take over a couple of days. He's getting upset now.
You see, I can't believe it. Can you believe that?
We will talk about the quarter-final tonight in the Olympic Stadium in Kiev, which is England against Italy. We'll be going off to paint our faces in just a second. Angus, myself and Luther, red and white, with Mina in the tricolore. See you in a second. We're back on the Eurozone. Someone forgot the face paint, so unfortunately we're not coloured up just yet, but we will be patriotic and passionate in our discussion with our panel in a few moments' time. Before all that, though, let's speak to our Italian correspondent in Ukraine as Tancredi Palmieri sets the scene in his own inimitable way.
Italy-England is coming up. They will have to sail across the quarter-finals this river to get until the Narodowy Stadium in Warsaw to face Germany in semi-final. Well, for something like this, I just can't be alone. May I introduce you? Chris Aldergill, CNN senior sports producer, is English. You're not neutral.
Not today.
Well, nor am I.
Starts and ends with the captain, and in recent times it's ended before it's even got started for England. But in Steven Gerrard, they've got a player who's taken on the extra responsibilities the older players have disappeared, and having set up 3 of England's 5 goals, Stevie G is captain fantastic.
Andrea Pirlo, Gigi Buffon, world-class personality, leadership. Yes, I know it's very difficult to go to final. Yes, I know it's very difficult to go to semi-final. But with Andrea Pirlo and with Gigi Buffon, me and all the Italians, we go everywhere in the world. Mario, this is gonna be your night, Mario. Yes, why always him? Because it's you, because we can't do this without you, Mario. You can belong to the top elite players of the world, and this is the chance, this is the time. Go, Super Mario.
No, please. Just take this off, please. Tancredi, what are you talking about? I'll tell you what. Balotelli, listen here, in the back pocket. I'll tell you why, the man marking him will be none other than Julian Lescott, the player who plays with him at Manchester City. Forget about his temperament, he's going nowhere.
I can't believe it.
Okay, so this game is more than just individuals, it's about playing as a team. And this England team has certainly gelled in more ways than one in this tournament. After his headed goal against Ukraine, Wayne Rooney put down his exploits to Andy Carroll's hair gel as a pre-match lucky boost. Now, I'm not letting success get to my head, but with Rooney and the lucky hair gel, you can expect another slick performance.
Elegance and personality and style? What are you talking about? Teaching elegance to Italians? Did you saw how Brandelli came in? Organized, so brave, everyone all over the pitch? Look, when it is about elegance and style, nothing to teach about. Can you give me the gel?
Not so fast, Hank, okay? We already eat your food here in England, and under Roy Hodgson, we started to play the Italian way as well. Roy, remember, has managed what in Serie A? Inter and Udinese. So under him, we've never ever had a better chance of beating you boys. Buon appetito.
What are you talking about? We are not the Italy you are used to, okay? They go out for ball possession, they are always offensive, they never give up in controlling the game, and according to the UEFA statistics, we Italians run even more than you English. Cheers, mate!
Okay, so our head-to-head record against you guys is not that great.
Not that great. You will beat us since 1977, and look at all the cups on this flag.
Mamma mia, what, a World Cup, a World Cup, a World Cup? won European Championship back in what, 1968?
Yes.
Do you remember the semi-final?
Ah, the semi-final.
How did you win? With a toss of a coin.
Yes, and 2 years earlier, how did you won your only World Cup with the no-goal line technology?
Which was over the line.
What's over the line? History, that counts.
Okay, with history is against us, then surely the present owes us. And whilst we're at it, why don't we bury the hatchet by beating you guys on penalties?
I don't think so, because you have to remember, when you go on the pitch, who you are facing, and all these things are right. Even if, actually, the titles won't play a part. Tancredi Palmeri, Sports Night Live. It was.
We will be talking to him a little later in the show. Just in case you were, no ladies were hurt in the filming of that show. She's safe and sound. That young one's doing well out there, isn't he? He's certainly meeting the locals out in Ukraine and Poland. It was interesting, the comparison there, the England and Italy, and the thing that shone through there, and the one thing that's hard to get past, Luther Blissett, is the fact that Italy have won the World Cup 4 times. They won the European Championships in 1968 as well, and they've only lost 2 of 9 quarter-finals at major tournaments.
Yeah.
When England have lost 7 of 10 and only once won 1 on foreign soil, and that was Cameroon in 1990.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, you look at this tournament so far. We've just been talking about what's happened there with Spain beating France. That's not happened before in the tournament, is it? And now that's happened there, and there are so many other things where this a very similar sort of thing has happened so far this tournament. England not beaten Sweden in a competitive match for God knows how long. This is the year it all turns on its head, and that's what we've got to get. That's what we've got to get. That's what we've got to get around it at the moment, because that's how it's changing. And the way it's changing is the fact that the attitude, just mentally, I think, whether the English players are going into the games, is so different than normal. They go into the game now with not this massive pressure that you've got to win this, you've got to win. They're going out now and, you know, better organised, and I think it's a good way to go. Leave out the Italians' book. Don't give much away at the back. And if you cannot give stuff away at the back, you've got a chance to go forward from there. Yeah, I mean, this game today against Italy, for me, I mean, you look at the back fours and you look at they've got
Chiellini's out.
Chiellini's out. So. But that doesn't take I mean, it's a massive loss for them, but it's not a massive loss in the total picture the way the Italians play, because really, when it comes to defending, they all know their jobs, and nobody does it better than the Italians when it comes to, we're just going to stick in and defend and be hard to beat. They're good at that. But England have taken a leaf out of their book, and at the back, yes, we haven't got the pace there, but today I think the way it's got to work is you've got to have Lescott has got to take Balotelli. Got to be that way. You've got to take him when he comes, and then but then I know that Cassano. For me, Cassano's the one we've got to really watch. Cassano is the one that England have really got to keep an eye on. But I tell you what, it doesn't. Cassano's the one you got, because Cassano drops into those holes, picks the ball up, and he's got great feet. Great feet, and on his day, he can be a Messi, he can be a Ronaldo, he can do all of those things.
So maybe Scott Parker has to pick him up. Let's look at because there's obviously comparison between the two countries. There's been a shared cultural heritage in the sense the Romans conquered this country a couple of thousand years ago, and then we went backwards for 1,500 years after they left. And there's been a comparison between the way that England play and the way that Italy play in the Catenaccio. I know the Italian media's been talking about that. Statistically, Angus, going into this tournament, it's surprising in a way, isn't it? England have been a lot more defensive than Italy. It's talking about Italy having twice as many shots per game than England, or almost that. Here you go, shots per game, 17.7. For Italy, 9.7 for England, and I think the conversion rate for England's been the best in the tournament.
Yeah, it's not as surprising as you think, because Roy Hodgson will have known exactly what he had to work with, and he's had problems in the squad, late pull-outs, and obviously Lampard was a big blow losing him. I think the way that England played, he'd have been very important. But saying that, now he's got Rooney back in the team. I was looking at Rooney's record against Italian clubs for Manchester United. He's actually played 14 games against Italian clubs and scored 10 times. Not bad, and that's a tremendous record against Italian teams. Rooney will be raring to go, and he's a fresh player who's just had the one game and scored that tap-in goal. And he is going to be very important to England, because he's a sort of energetic player who does do things a bit differently, likes playing up front, but also uses a lot of energy when playing behind the front players as well. And I think if he's going to be the key player for England, if he's firing tonight, England have got a good chance.
Possession statistics, Mina, look at those, because 49.6% possession. So Italy have kind of had half and half in the games they've played in, which are probably skewed because they were down against Spain. And 44.3%. So they've a lot more possession in terms of the minutes, and presumably they want to keep it tonight because they have tied, haven't they? The last half hour was all against Croatia, against Spain.
This is the whole debacle. It's like, do they play a 3-5-2 in which they're more direct and they're more of an offensive team, they create a lot more, but it's tiring formation to play because you have to press a lot in order to keep the pressure off and in order to keep it compact and tight. You know, what they are going for is a 4-man backline because that allows them a little bit more control, a little bit more time on the ball. It just doesn't give them very many chances. But I mean, if Mellberg can score 2 goals against England through set pieces, then you know what? We have every belief that Balotelli or Cassano can do something. But I think it's interesting what you were talking about, Rooney scoring. Now, this is our psychological thing, is that whenever we face a Premiership team in the Champions League, we always think, oh, we're going to lose. You know, the Serie A versus Champions League versus England.
But that's a paradigm change for 20 years, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, that was very
but
different.
having said that, you know, as a national team, we play in a much different way. And now Cesare Prandelli was in charge of a Fiorentina team that did so well in the Champions League, especially against Liverpool twice. And this team is made up of Liverpool players, perhaps not the same ones. But, I mean, you know, he knows exactly how teams play and he likes to neutralise threats. And he's always someone that looks like he can't do it, but he manages it in the end. So we have some belief.
Well, let's look at this comparison here because these are 2 playmakers, probably the best playmakers. Paul Scholes would argue of English generation. But Gerrard, but look at Angus, the stats there: 149 passes for Steven Gerrard, 169 for.
Yeah, but I like the tackles.
Yeah,
I mean that actually just there's one thing there that's
between the games.
But
stands out.
I
know that, but that just shows you that they are 2 completely different.
They are indeed. Because I tell you what,
he's playing different now than just
Liverpool. But the different
isn't
thing about that is, I mean, what Pirlo do and what the Italian midfield players do, it's not the tackling what they do. Their job, interception, and that sort of thing. That's where they work on because, you know, to intercept and cut angles down and break attacks up that way, and they're very, very good at it. Whereas the English way, you know, you get in, you win the ball, and be very physical in the way you're about it.
But it's a good high pass percentage.
It's a very good. It's very. I mean, the difference between the 2 players.
That surprises me because Gerrard and Beckham a few years ago for England were known as the Hollywood boys, weren't they? You'd get Beckham getting it, switching it 80 yards across the pitch, and then Gerrard would get it and he'd try and switch it the other way 80 yards. But this one, look at 87% pass success. And we know all his crosses, he's created 3 goals. Yeah. But he is keeping the ball, possibly the only England player so far we've seen keep it.
I know, but the other thing about it is because we're no longer playing in that way we were playing before, where we just look and just, oh, let's just go forward, let's go forward. We are now at least looking to set play up a little bit more, which allows Gerrard to get himself in those pockets where he gets, especially on the right-hand side, where he's put some great deliveries in from. You know, he's getting in better positions because of it, because the build-up play is a bit slow, sometimes too slow for me, the way we play, and we should sometimes take a little leaf out of the way the Italians do it, you know, where sometimes they keep it, and then suddenly they injection pace into it and just suddenly go at you. We need to do, you know, mix that up a little bit more the way we play, but, I mean, in comparisons, they are very different
for central midfield players, there's a lot of crosses from both those players, isn't it?
There are, for sure.
But you know what annoys me is
3
the
games
assists,
so far.
because, I mean, you know, Pirlo has one of the... He's just marvellous at delivering assists, but he's got no one there finishing off his chances. So it looks like, you know, Gerrard is made to look sort of like a genius with so many assists, but he's got people that can actually finish off these chances that he creates.
Yeah, but but 3-2 at the moment is nothing at this stage, is it? I mean, 3-2.
Yeah, but I feel like it's going to be more, and this is the thing. People will, you know, people will say, "Oh, Pirlo's not."
Well, tonight will be a deciding thing because it's the last time one of these two are going to be in the tournament after today.
Yeah, Pirlo and Buffon, I think, are the only survivors from the World Cup 2006 final. Starters, De Rossi came on as a substitute, didn't he? Is that right? And then, but look at the midfield area, Mina. How do Italy line up? And are they going to outnumber England in that central midfield area? Is that going to be the key to it must be the key to playing England, surely, at this stage?
Well, I mean, this is how Italy play. They like to play with their midfielders, much like Spain. They are trying to, in some ways, mimic their style with their own direct football. That's what they bring forward.
But Montolivo just behind the front 2, you think?
Now, this is what everyone is saying, because Thiago Motta's picked up a knock, and he was meant to play behind the front 2. Now, he didn't do a very good job against Ireland. But what they are doing is more of a rotational system. So it is 4 of them. So it's De Rossi, Marchisio, Pirlo, and Montolivo, it looks like. And they'll rotate. So you'll never know who's really going to play there. Ideally, it would be, you know, Montolivo will stay in that position. He's more creative than the others, whereas Pirlo's very good when he has the whole pitch to look at. But I wouldn't be surprised if he did try to shake it up, Prandelli, throw in a surprise, perhaps play Nocerino, who's more of a dynamic, you know, a tough sort of more of an English style player. Or as one of my friends actually suggested the other day, Cristiano Ronaldo, he was like, well, you know what, why not play Marchisio behind? Because he can also be a Nocerino.
And he can arrive
he gets himself
and shoot,
into very good positions. And for Juventus, he was a highest scoring midfielder. But perfect in making those direct runs forward, picking up space and scoring.
we'll analyse this more as well in what we do about Pirlo for the English perspective. But Angus, quick word, because the bookmakers don't often get it wrong. These sides haven't met in 10 years, so there's very little history, recent history they can go on.
10 years?
But they can't call it. Yeah, Elland Road game, I think a friendly 2-1 win for Italy. But they can't call it, can they, the bookmakers? Which is a very clear sign of how tight it could be.
It is actually as tight as you could get. They're 10 to 11, both of them to qualify. It's 15 to 8 either to win in 90 minutes and 2 to 1 the draw. You could not get a closer match than this. Therefore, all the correct scores are the same prices, and you know, the low-scoring games are favourite in this match.
No 0-0 so far, but you don't think we're going to have one here, do you? A lot of people are saying that. A lot of people saying penalties after 0-0
6 to 1, yeah, but I mean it's 6 to 1 0-0. It's 11 to 2 1-1. Those are the scores that most people are going. If a team's going to win, it's 6 to 1 to win 1-0, 11 to 1 to win 2-1, and 14 to 1 2-0. Those are the real scores that people are concentrating on. They don't see it being high scoring at all.
I just wonder if it might be. There might be a few goals.
Well,
because the central defender's not
goal. No, I don't think there's going to be. My biggest...
No Chiellini, Terry weakness.
My biggest thing about this game is I think if Italy score first, England could have a big problem.
Yeah.
But the other way round...
They've conceded after every time they've scored first, they've conceded a goal.
They're playing England. I mean, have you seen England from behind? Because what we don't do enough,
attacking strategy.
We're not very good at having to chase the game and keep the back door shut. We can't do it. You know, because we don't build our attacks. We go attack.
Luther, then
guys, I'll call a halt for just a second because we will continue this discussion very much in the next part. We'll analyse it from every which way and then get your predictions at the end. Very tense in the studio as we go through this. We'll be back in a few moments' time talking more England, Italy, and hoping against hope for not a 0-0 draw. See you soon. Back on the Eurozone show, digging deep into England against Italy. We had to call time on the panel there, getting animated with a tactical discussion. Angus Loughran, aka Statto, Mina Rzouki, and Luther Blissett here. And Luther, spoke to you beforehand about Andrea Pirlo, and I know a lot of people have said that potentially it's Gerrard and Parker's job to counteract him. We did have the comparison stat there, but how important Wayne Rooney's role? Is he the one that's more likely to be closest to him?
Well, it's got to be, yeah. I mean, the thing is, you can't be asking Gerrard to step out from his defending, you know, because they're the shield, really. Gerrard and Parker are the shield for the back four.
Yeah.
And if they step out, they try and get to Pirlo, because Pirlo won't be that many times. You won't find him at the top of their midfield. He's the one that's going to sit behind. Why? Because he runs the game. He'll get it and he'll give the ball there and switch it. And, you know, he's the one that dictates the tempo of the way Italy plays. You know, De Rossi would be more than not. You find De Rossi there more than you find Pirlo, you know, any time. So it's going to have to be the centre forward or the man that plays off the centre forward, which is, you know, if he plays two up front, then it's going to be Rooney's job out of possession to make sure he's
Rooney
in
do that job
and
well enough?
around.
I mean, we've seen Rooney against Barcelona in the final of the Champions League last year. That was his job, supposedly, to step out, and Busquets necessarily doesn't do it that well, seemingly gets a bit lost in that role.
Well, the thing is he's going to have to do it. Yeah, you're right in doing that, but he can, to be honest, Rooney is such a hard worker and he's our biggest threat. He's the one that I admire so much when it comes to the English team. He really knows how to play any position. He may not have been great against that team, but who is?
Yeah.
Who is against Barcelona? But the thing is he's going to have to do that for Pirlo, because if he's given any time on the ball, and we've seen that, then he can just dictate the tempo, he can dictate the game, he can pass. His passing range is unbelievable, and much more different to the Spanish one, who like their horizontal passes. He knows exactly how to pick out Balotelli at the top or Cassano at the top. So this is going to be dangerous, and you're going to have to shield him in order to not get the best out of him.
And that one to Cassano, when he's deep,
yeah,
because when Balotelli goes there and Cassano drops off into that little hole between the midfield and the back, and he'll look to do that, and he'll go bang and put the ball in there.
Do you ask your fullbacks to come in more against this league, because they don't necessarily have the width? Do Ashley Cole?
I think they can come in a little bit more, but you don't want to get you don't then want to get too narrow, because the moment you get too narrow, that says to the fullbacks, you know, then they go on.
And they are attacking,
and they are very, very tactically aware of the way they play the game. We'll get into
England's selections options in just a second. We've got, hey, let's talk about Italy's selection options with Tancredi Palmieri joins us. Tancredi, we loved your scene set there with your colleague from CNN. That was wonderful. I hope you're not still with the lady who was in the video, but she seemed very friendly, so that was good, and you did a great job there. Hey, I'm a happily married man, Tancredi.
Yes,
I'm a happily married man.
Send it. Yes, good man.
But wait, guys, all the wages.
Hey, Tancredi, Italy. You usually the voice of pessimism when it comes to the Azzurri on this show. Quick word about how you feel generally about the matchup against England.
Okay, if I have to talk physically, I have stomachache since I woke up this morning because I can't already wait for that. But if I have to talk just about the team, the squad, well, I must say I don't want to use the word confidence because whenever in the history we, in Italy, we dare to use the word confidence, that was the moment in which we were, okay, so you understood, not confident, but at least there is a belief that it is possible, and it's already something. Now, this belief is really to be handled with carefulness, because this England, in my opinion, is the one with less expectations of the last 25 years, and actually look how much good, I mean how much concrete is performing. Plus, Roy Hodgson, as we all know, on the other side of the bench, knows very good how to harm teams that want to play offensive and with initiative. So it's really to take care. I'm looking forward, but I hope that the guys, the likes of Buffon and Pirlo and De Rossi, said the right words to the other guys in these days, saying we haven't done nothing yet.
Yeah, experienced heads. What about selection? Quick, cover this one with yourself and Mina. Will it be Chiellini out, just Bonucci straight in, or does De Rossi possibly play in defence? Any question marks there?
No. The question mark is only about the number 10, but I can give you 95%, 95% sources, state sources from half an hour ago from the training camp of Italy. 95% what will be the Italy 11. Buffon in the goal, Abate right back, Balzaretti left back, Bonucci and Barzagli centre backs, De Rossi, Pirlo, Marchisio in midfield, up in front Cassano, Balotelli, as number 10, the only small question mark, but probably, very probably, will be Riccardo Montolivo from Fiorentina in place of Thiago Motta. This only change because Thiago Motta had a small injury 3 days ago, but at the same time, Prandelli liked more the attitude and the interpretation of the role of Montolivo as number 10 compared with Thiago Motta. And as long as against a midfield like the one of England will be very tough, and Italy so far didn't face a midfield like that because Spain and Croatia were center midfielders very technical. Ireland, yes, very physical but with few quality. England is almost the perfect mix of quality and quantity, I would say, in middle. So Montolivo, he prefer much more some assist givers as number 10 than Thiago Motta.
So England outnumbered in central midfield. If you were Roy Hodgson, would you play a different formation? Do you think they should play another central midfielder in there to counteract Italy, or do you think Rooney can be a help to the midfield of England?
Honestly, with Rooney so rested and so relaxed, honestly, I would just prepare a team and a squad that could put him in the best situation to perform. And I feel like this is the good one, with Walcott ready to come in the last half an hour. Because I think that if England would start with Walcott since beginning, since the first minute, maybe it would be a bit dangerous for the attitude they prepared and they trained in the last weeks. Of course, these are top quality champions, so they can change the gear just in a while. But still, the squad is set in that way. When Walcott come in, can change the game, and could be after 60 stressing minutes that could finish already the energy, or at least going to finish the energy of the Italians.
So that's a point.
Lady, I'm really excited to see you tomorrow, but before that...
I'm preparing the curtain, everything I'm preparing.
Why do we need a... Stop it, Tancredi. Anyway, do you think that it might have been a good idea to perhaps play Nocerino, who maybe adds a little bit of a dynamic edge? You know, he's more physical and he knows how to get himself into the right places, a little bit like Marchisio, let's say. So why not opt for him perhaps against England?
No, I was thinking about Nocerino, but and I wasn't ruling him out. But I would play Nocerino just if Prandelli would have go for a three-man defense with De Rossi behind and 5 men in the midfield, 5 men in the midfield. But in the midfield we have, beside Pirlo, De Rossi and Marchisio. these are two gladiators that if I have, I don't know, if I have to walk in the night in Russian streets of far away, I will go with Rossi and Marchisio. They can protect you and they can assist you all the way. And in a situation like that, if you have already that too, it's already okay, it's already fine. Also, I can tell you this, the two fullbacks, Abate and Balzaretti, they won't have so many offensive duties tomorrow, especially Abate. As far as I know, Balzaretti will have a bit of license to attack and come up, but Abate will be said to stay a lot tight, stay back, and wait for the English. So I think that with the Rossi and Marchisio and Montolivo up in front as number 10, I think it could be good.
Luther, on the other side of things in the midfield battle there, people talk about James Milner and what he necessarily brings to the England setup. But is that we talk about the Italians overloading that central area? Is Milner, he obviously has played central midfield, he is going to be asked to drag back in if Gerrard goes forward.
Yeah, I mean, he's done pretty much that job, and it really annoys me when people say, what's he done? He has allowed Gerrard to get himself in those areas where he's delivered and got us the goals so far, because when Gerrard is up in those areas, he's actually protecting that space in there.
Though? Do you need something creative though?
Not when you're. I mean, we must not forget England are now experimenting during a tournament in a different way to play. Yeah. You cannot just go gung-ho and just say, let's go. You have to keep some sort of sensibility about it, which is where Hodgson's been very, very good, because I think he's gone about it and said, we still have to do this, but we still have to hurt the opposition a little bit. So Milner's job is to fill that little hole a little bit. We've hardly seen Johnson go down the outside, which again goes to so a little bit like what you're saying about Abate. Yeah. You know, you've got to pick your moment when you're going to go forward, because if you just go gung-ho, you leave yourself wide open, and England will exploit that because we will use that diagonal pass to get in behind you.
But you know what, Dan, I also want to ask you, because I know that Hodgson was obviously, the coach for Udinese and Inter, but he was never really viewed in Italy as to be such a wonderfully tactically astute coach. So do you think that Prandelli may affect, may do his substitutions in a way that will sort of expose Hodgson for being perhaps not as on the level?
But England have got better substitutions on the bench, haven't they, than Italy? They've got better games that can change it, with Walcott, with Oxlade-Chamberlain, a bit of speed.
When you talk about impact, definitely.
Yes, impact perhaps, but do you think that Prandelli might show himself to win at this game based on purely tactics?
Well, I actually agree with both of you. I mean, it's true that England got a deeper squad, and it's true that for Prandelli, substitutions along the game could change. That happened already with against Spain. That has been the toughest game and the only comparable level of quality that Italy faced so far, comparable to England. And in that case, Di Natale came in and he gave more speed and energy to the team. If that will happen, so that will mean that Balotelli didn't impact the game as was expected. But in my opinion, as I said also already in the package, this time is the Balotelli time. I know it's very easy to say, but I think that really Balotelli against Rooney is the key face-off of this game. Also for who they have in front. Rooney can go wide where Bonucci is, but also where Abate is, and can find a break in the wall through that way. Balotelli against Lescott. If Lescott is doing as he did in this Euro Championship, Balotelli can have a hard time. But if Balotelli can find the way through, yes, that can be through Lescott, because he knows him, and he knows that all in all, Lescott is not John Terry or Rio Ferdinand still. He doesn't have 90 perfect minutes of intensity.
Sure.
He's having sometimes a couple of amnesia along the game. And Balotelli knows that. So really, in such a level and tight game, I see that these two things can really break the balance.
Angus, what are your thoughts as to Tancredi in the formation now? He's talking about 4-3-1-2 for Italy with that central packed there. Does that lead more towards the low-scoring game again, do you think? Or do you think of an early goal here? Because I've seen John Terry, he's been carrying a fridge around on his back at this tournament. If Balotelli isolates him in a straight-foot race, maybe they can nick an early goal. Maybe Italy will try and come out and get an early goal.
The general feeling is that this will be a low-scoring game. But as you know, in knockout football, if we do get an early goal, the rules completely change, and the tactics will completely change, because at the end of the day, you go through on what happens tonight. There's no second chance in knockout football. But the majority of the people who are are looking at it, are thinking that it's going to be tight and it's going to be hard. The first goal is going to be very important.
Are there question marks over both teams in that regard, Tancredi? How both will tactically respond to going a goal behind? Because I know Italy are on the front foot against Spain, scored first. England, haven't really, apart from against Sweden, had to come back from adversity. And that was only 5 minutes, wasn't it, where they were behind 2-1.
Well, the question mark is actually over Italy, because England have reacted every time fantastically. Actually, they played even better when they were 1 goal behind, and it is understandable because if Hodgson's strategy is more about leaving the initiative and let's say counter-attack, so it makes sense. But Italy have always scored as first against Spain, against Croatia, against Ireland. So it would be a brand new situation for them. And in the last times, actually, even in friendly games, when we saw, but even in friendly games is a different topic, but when we saw Italy conceding the first goal, then the confidence crashed. And I see that this England, if this England scores as first, it is so tough when it is so level game to level them. So the problem is more about Italy, I would say, more about them.
Tancredi, great to speak to you as ever. It was 0-0, I think, in the last big game between these sides. It was Rome 97, wasn't it, qualifying in the Stadio Olimpico in Rome, and England got that 0-0 draw. We're hoping it's not 0-0 tonight. What's your prediction? What's your prediction?
Very tight, but I believe that at least both of them will score 1 goal, at least.
Okay, Tancredi, sitting on the fence, well done. You'll be welcome back again next week, even if it is Italy in the final. We'll catch up with you again, Tancredi. Fantastic work today, both now and in your preview package.
Bye, guys. Thank you very much. I'm ready to welcome you tomorrow, Mina.
Oh, I'm ready too.
That's going to be an explosive scene. Hopefully get the camera on for that one. We'll watch it next week. We'll speak to you again soon. We'll speak to you again soon, Tancredi. Luther Blissett, because we talked off air about what we touched on with Tancredi there, and he's saying that he thinks the question marks over Italy, how they respond to going a goal down in the game tonight. Yes. But we talked about strategically how England might struggle because they have been such a counter-attacking side.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if England is going to win it, we need to score first. I think if we score first, we could then maybe even nick another goal. Yeah. But I do think if we go behind, it will be difficult because then we'd have to, as Angus has said, then you've got to change your strategy completely. And in changing your strategy, if you go too far with it, then Italy will get another goal. Yeah, definitely with what they have. So both teams, which is why I think it's so close between them, they very similar things can happen depending who scores the first goal.
I do admire the fact that you think we can score goals.
No, they can score. There's no doubt about it. They can score goals. Well, the thing is,
Balotelli's just scored a cracking goal, hasn't he? So surely he's going to be in form.
I mean, we only got 2 against Ireland. When Croatia managed 4, Spain, 3 rather. Spain managed 4, and we managed 2, like barely. You know?
But don't forget. But in that last game, though,
more pressure.
On Italy in that game, the Irish are going. We want to go out and get some pride out of this. So when you play the Irish or the Scottish or the Welsh or whatever, and it's down to pride, you're in for a very hard game because they're not going to lie down for you. So it's a different situation. But
against the Italian manager as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Cassano for me is the one that we have to be very wary of.
Yeah. So let's get selection issues quickly out of the way for England. In terms of the strikers, people talk about Andy Carroll perhaps being an aerial threat in the absence of Chiellini. But you think they'll stick with Danny Welbeck, and you believe the midfield will stay the same with Young, Milner,
I think he'll keep it the same. I think he'll keep it the same.
Well, he should keep it the same because Bonucci and Barzagli, despite the fact that fine, the aerial throw and all of that, you have that with Andy Carroll. They're not the quickest of people, and if you do apply a lot of pressure, especially on Bonucci, who likes to play the ball out from the back, then Welbeck's movements and the way that he gets himself into clever positioning could have an impact, especially in fact when facing Bonucci. So I think that's a very clever tactic to go. Whereas as much as Andy Carroll offers you something different, perhaps he doesn't offer you the intelligence in his movements that you need when countering a defensive, the centre back.
Perhaps a bet for Andy Carroll any time though if he comes off the bench.
Well, yeah, but you think that's what you'd have to wait. I'm pretty sure Carroll's going to be on the bench, and I think that the way that it's set up and what the players England have, I think there won't be any changes.
Well, we'll reflect more on Euro 2012 in this game in due course, just after the break. Coming back, we'll also talk on Germany as well. We've got James Thorogood on the line and who they're looking forward to playing in the semi-finals. Back in a few moments on the Eurozone. Back Back on the Eurozone, dissecting what's going to come in the quarterfinals, reflecting what we've seen in the tournament so far. We're talking England, Italy with Angus Loughran, Mina Rzouki and Luther Blissett. Let's talk about psychology now. We've talked about the tactics. Let's talk about belief in England's so-called inferiority complex. This is the back page of the Daily Star, which you can see there. Believe, a picture of Steven Gerrard looking very stoic and meaningful. A lot of those pictures around. Show you the Sunday Express on a similar theme. Seize the day. Gerrard saying that England haven't done this in previous tournaments and now they need to have that element to it. And then the back page of the People, which has a Gary Neville top banner, but just says on there, end our pain. Luther, hopefully our pain will end in the quarterfinals, because as we said before, it's only that quarterfinal against Cameroon in
well, I think one way or the other, the pain's going to end, isn't it? You're either going to be out or you're going to be in the next round. So, you know. You
played for England. How big is the inferiority complex about? Because Italy, we know they've won 4 World Cups, albeit 2 of them were in the 30s, and we know that they've won, I think, 7 of 9 quarterfinals, or got through 7 of 9 quarterfinals in major tournaments.
We lost to Spain on penalties.
Yeah, how important is that psychology, and how much of a hassle is it, or how much has Roy Hodgson taken it away?
It can be, but I think this New England setup, the way their approach to the game has been very different. Yeah, and I'd hope that that means the way they think about going into games will be different. It's not going to be, we haven't done this, we haven't done that. It'll be, we can do this if we go out and we do these set things which we've worked on, because that ultimately puts you in the right place. Any individual sportsman or whatever will say, my game plan is this when I'm going into it, to do what you're going to do. That's exactly what England's got to do. Your game plan is going to be, this is what we're going to do, and if we follow our game plan, what it does, it puts you in the best possible position to actually achieve your goals and your dreams.
We talk about psychology, don't we, of England, and the expectancy of the media and the pressure, because of course it was bizarre. We went from being, I think we only lost 4 in 20 odd games before the tournament, but still there was this thing of negative. We won't get through a group, even though it's Ukraine and Sweden who are ranked so low. But that's grown now in England. But there's similar pressure on the Italians, isn't there? And also, you've got a pretty dodgy penalty record as well. Is it only 1 2 out of 7 versus England 1 out of 6 shootouts?
Listen, if Baggio can't score a penalty, what hope do we have, honestly speaking? Yeah. No, I know that there is that kind of thing. But what I do think about England is I've always been quite critical of the way they play their national, football, because it's always sort of, it seems that club football matters so much more to them than their country. Where you see the Germans, they put on, Klose, Podolski, maybe not so prolific in the actual league, and it comes to German time and it's like, wow, they're the best players on the pitch. And that's how I feel about the Italians too. And then the English come and it's sort of like,
a lot of the best players in our domestic league aren't English, so I suppose that might be a problem.
Perhaps, but I still think, Terry, you've got a lot of good players who always perform for club football, but perhaps not so well like Glenn Johnson's and things when it comes to the national team. But this time you see a team that really believe and that really want it. The Italians always believe, always want it. That just doesn't go away, because the Italian shirt means more than anything you can imagine. But it's
Nina, I agree with what you're saying there about, particularly about the club football being bigger than international football. But one thing I will say is that if an England team here does well, the TV viewing figures do show it, and they've been unbelievable.
Well, Angus, you've obviously been a sort of a football journalist for the course of the duration of the last 30 years or so. How does the expectancy now, how does the mood around the England team differ to what you've seen? Is there a sense of conviction about Roy Hodgson's team that you haven't seen before?
Well, the big tournaments that you can remember through the media, if you take, say, Italia 90, where England reached a semi-final without doing much at all in the game. If you look at the group games, they had draws against Ireland and a draw against Holland and a narrow win against Egypt. They then had a dramatic win against Belgium, which was David Platt's won the goal in that last 16 match. Volley, Then the Cameroon game, which everything went wrong and they actually won that quarter-final. And then, of course, the Germany game, which captured the public's imagination with the penalties and the drama of the way that they went out there. And then, of course, in Euro '96, it's very different for England. We were host nations, of course. And what happened there was they were in a group with Switzerland, Scotland and Holland, and they didn't get off to a great start against Switzerland, but put in their best performance against Holland and Scotland. They also played well with the Gascoigne's great goal. Yeah. Then they had the quarter-final against Spain, which was a different...
Well, it's our only ever penalty victory.
Yeah, and it was 0-0, went to penalties and England won. And then, of course, there was the other German penalty shootout. Now, that was the defining game, really, because England should have won that match. There's no doubt. They got off to a great start. They scored a good goal. Alan Shearer scored. And if that game had been in Hanover and Germany had been at home, they'd have won 5-0. That was the game that let England let everything go in penalties. the Germans looked cooler and won. But that 96 against my defining moment of where things slipped. But the country was right behind England. The viewing figures were colossal. And even now, I've been staggered that the viewing figures have been so high for England. But you get the feeling they've been almost under the radar, which is not something they've been used to. Normally, England are overhyped for tournaments. In this one, they haven't been, have they?
Do you worry about penalties? A lot of talk about it this week because everyone perceives it's a low-scoring game. But a lot of talk about Joe Hart having the advantage over Gianluigi Buffon.
Well, he says already said, the first 5 penalties, I'm going to take one, which is fantastic for a goalkeeper to say that. And to be fair, goalkeepers usually, the way they strike the ball, I'd always let the goalkeeper to have one anyway.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of interesting penalty shootouts. I mean, recently, one in obviously the Champions League final. Would give great belief, I think, to a lot of the English players. And I mean, even the playoff final in the first division domestically.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's the first time ever in a shootout teams missed their first 3 and 1.
That's right. Incredible.
So
penalty shootout is one of those things. You can practice it as much as you like.
Petr Cech went the right way in every penalty in the Champions League final, which suggests that these goalkeepers are so researched up. And
they do. I mean, they will watch a DVD. They'll have the DVD and they'll watch it again and again and again. They'll see wherever they're up against, where they put their penalties and whatever. I mean, Joe Hart's even said that. He said, I'll have a look at it and I will study it at the right time, because then it gets it in your head and you're ready to go. But you can practice as much as you like. On the day, it really depends on the day. And often it's influenced by how you've played during the game.
Yeah, your confidence.
Because if you've not played particularly well in the game, you can guarantee your confidence is not going to be high when it comes to the penalties.
Baggio scored in the game, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then missed the penalty in the shootout at 94.
He stayed on there, and you just thought, oh, he's staying on to take his penalty, took his penalty, and it was saved. Baggio, I mean, we don't have any hope in that. But
Prandelli won't play for penalties, will he? Because he seems a more
why would we? We never win on penalties.
Neither team will play for penalties.
Even if it's 85 minutes, 90 minutes.
Well, if you're talking right towards the end of the game, you're going to be cautious, but you're going to still try and win it if you can.
We're not going to try. We don't want to play for the extra time because, I mean, we can't even survive 70 minutes let alone trying to play for that.
With 5 minutes to go, you'd probably play for the extra time, but it'd be interesting to see if we get an extra time like we did. We were talking about great matches and extra time. I mean, I think if this match ran into extra time, we might get a game like France against Germany in the '82 World Cup, which had four goals in extra time.
Plus, I think both teams will tire dramatically.
Because England don't keep the ball, and because Italy.
But I think also you look at the way England have played in the games they have done. I mean, Parker in the Ukraine game, he was treading water towards the end. There'll be a few players who'll be doing exactly the same on both teams, and it could be that it goes into extra time. And we see a few goals because
how vital Oxlade-Chamberlain and Walcott with that in mind then?
Well, I mean, if you've got the pace that, and this is where we mention it, that on the benches that can make an impact. What we have, the pace that we have on the bench, could be enormous thing to change the game in that stage of the game if that be the case. So yes, we might have the edge there, but I don't think either team would want it to go that far.
Let's hope we get some goals in the game as well. We'll talk about great goals in just a moment's time on the Eurozone, particularly Zlatan Ibrahimovic. What a fantastic effort it was against France. Back on the Eurozone then in a few moments' time, reflecting on the quarter-finals as a whole and getting the big predictions from our panel on the big game tonight. Bye for now. Back on the Eurozone show, your culturally flavoured Sunday morning effort, usually very objective, very analytical, but flavoured with a whole lot of passion and panache about the England-Italy game tonight. On the subject of Italy, Mina, let's get a quick word from yourself because you've picked out a story there. The back page of the Sunday Express, isn't it?
Yeah.
Roberto Mancini to a managerial vacancy in Italy.
It says Italy lining up Mancini, so should Prandelli quit or this is who they'd want to replace him. And I just thought, no, it isn't. I mean, firstly, Prandelli's not quitting.
He's won a league in 2 countries, though, now.
Despite that, I mean, when he won it with Inter, it was just thought to be, well, of course he's going to win it with Inter because they didn't have a Milan and Juventus to really contend with at the time.
Yeah.
He still struggled against a Roma side who usually always implode when it comes to the last race. And, I mean, he's done really well with Manchester City. He could have done better, let's be honest, He's a great coach, but I just don't feel like, Delio Rossi, we have so many coaches coming up in Italy, he wouldn't be the choice. And secondly, Prandelli wouldn't leave because we said from the start, even if we are to go out from the group stages, he's staying. We love him.
Yeah, there was the expectancy was very low, wasn't it, after their friendly results and so on. It's a transitional period for Italian football. We'll get back to Italian football in due course. Let's reflect on the tournament as overall, Luther Blissett. First on a positive note, your best team, your best player so far, who's wowed you?
Best team? Got to look at Portugal.
Really?
I'll look at Portugal for me because why? Because of one man that we spoke about. I mean, the thing is, as the tournament has gone, and one of the things because of the stick that he got early on in the tournament, and now he started scoring and he's producing because he's always, you could see it in him. He wants to desperately show that he is the player that he knows he is. Yeah. You know, and for me,
it's stressful
the
for
way
him,
they've gone and come through, it's difficult because again, he's doing it in a team which is not the best team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
you know,
it's not like Argentina.
He's doing it in a team where he's literally dragging him through on his own.
Well, a lot of it's interesting you said that Portugal being the best team for you, certainly from a spectacle, but I suppose a lot of people say that Germany being the best team in terms of results so far. And James Thorogood from Bundesliga.com is on Skype and joins us now. James, hello to you. Are you feeling sort of very pleased with the German performances thus far? Any sort of weak links you can sense in there?
Well, I mean, yeah, I totally agree that they are certainly the best team that I've seen play so far because unlike Portugal, who just got mentioned, they are a unit. And that's what's impressed me about them this time round. They have been playing some lovely football. Their weakness is certainly at right back with Jerome Boateng. I think we saw that against Greece. But the fact is, if they can iron out these, I'd say the balance between attack and defence was a little lacking. They left some space in behind themselves against Greece on the counter-attack. If they can iron out those problems, then they certainly, to me, right now are the team to beat in this tournament. Obviously, I mean, I take a professional interest in Germany. I'm still an England fan, but Germany have certainly impressed me a lot this tournament. That's for sure.
So, James, if you are to face England in the semi-final, you're going to be supporting England and not Germany.
That is very true. But the fact is, either way, I think I'm going to have to be happy with what happens because either my team will get through or the team that I obviously write for a lot will get through. So either way, I'm going to be quite pleased.
Now, let's not get too carried away because Mina gets very angry when we talk about England getting to the semi-finals. I've been putting them in the final against Portugal already today, so I don't want to get too excited. But that potential Germany-England match, Joachim Löw has already spoken of it, I know. He said that this England team much improved from 2 years ago. Roy Hodgson tactically better than Fabio Capello, which I know the Italian people would probably be livid about that comparison. But the German team surely has improved since 2 years ago as well, hasn't it?
Oh, certainly. I mean, he's made a real mark on this team, and what we've seen is then transition from being a counter-attacking team to a team that are comfortable holding possession and then breaking down their opponent with the patience game. And that has certainly impressed me a lot with Germany because it was the string to their bow I think they were missing at the World Cup and at the last Euros as well. And so, I mean, it's interesting. We were talking about it on my Talking Fußball podcast the other day. Who would Germany rather face? And we were asking my friend Alex, and he's a half German, half English, and he said he preferred to meet the Italians only because he wants revenge for 2006.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
That is the general consensus.
Very interesting.
We want it to happen because we think we'll get through to the final if we play Germany. So.
Ooh. Well, let's talk about the tournament as a whole before it gets too feisty here. The Germany-Italy memories of 6 years ago. What about your favourite goal? Let's throw that one out there. Is it Zlatan Ibrahimovic? Is it Danny Welbeck? Is it Sami Khedira against Greece?
Is it Mario Balotelli?
Oh, yeah. Get Balotelli in there.
Funny enough, I think my favourite goal would have been Royce's actually, had there been a goalkeeper in goal. But having said that, Zlatan Ibrahimovic does take the biscuit for me on this occasion.
Yeah, because Philip Lahm as well. I thought that shot should have been saved. Everyone was waxing lyrical.
We've seen some spectacular goals, really, and I think it has to be said that the standard of play overall has been exceptional, and the goals have come along with that. I mean, Sami Khedira's was a great team goal. Philip Lahm's was a great individual effort. You know, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, he's just got class in the box sometimes when the ball comes to him. Balotelli, you can say the same thing. What
have been the major disappointments? And I'm not necessarily talking about Germany because you haven't had too many, apart from maybe conceding a few chances against Portugal. Your disappointments of the tournament, does it revolve around that French side and several of their key players?
No, not really. I think, if anything, if I was to look at this from a neutral perspective and say what I found disappointing, it was that maybe that teams like Croatia and Denmark, who I really felt had given their all in this tournament, they just kind of came up against the wrong opponents, and it meant they didn't get through. Whereas had you maybe put them in Group A, and I know that's a bit theoretical, but had you maybe put them in Group A, I think we'd have been seeing them in the latter stages of this tournament. I think they deserved it as well to a certain extent.
Well, James, give us a prediction before you go. Who did Germany lose to in the semi-final? Is it England or Italy?
Oh, it's a real coin toss. I'm gonna say Italy though.
Okay. Oh. Well, tough for an Englishman to say that. So it will be...
Yeah, it pains me. It pains me to say that.
James Thorogood from Bundesliga.com. Good to speak to you. Enjoy tonight's game, or well, hopefully enjoy it more than you think you will anyway, by the sounds of your prediction.
Thank you, James.
We'll catch up with you next week, potentially for an Italy-Portugal final or an Italy-Spain final. We shall see. Do you?
I fancy them.
Well, let's get. Look, my producer's shouting at me. He wants to pick up Zlatan Ibrahimovic against France.
And we should.
And in terms of, I know he was only there for a few games, Luther, but in terms of players who have got a bit of a battering in the English press before about being overhyped.
A lot of people have spoken to me about him, and I have this one with what's his name from the Mirror all the time. And I said, no, he is a world-class striker, no doubt about it. For me, he is.
Yeah.
I mean,
he could have scored a hat-trick, couldn't he, against Ukraine? He had hit the post, he had
could
a
have
volley.
Scored a couple against England as well, didn't he?
He bullied Lescott.
Yeah, absolutely, you know, when you're talking, I mean, if he had been English, he'd lead our front line and we wouldn't have a worry because he can win the ball in the air and he's great on the floor. Yeah. If he needs to do that as well. I know, I think
this goal against France, where does that rank in the...
Oh, I mean, it's got to be one of the best goals we've seen in a long, long while, for sure.
You know what I like so much with Ibrahimovic? Everyone keeps talking about him not scoring, but I think what's so interesting is the way that he's been playing this season, both for Milan and for Sweden.
His role was different for Sweden, wasn't it?
In a much more deeper role, where he's offered that creativity, and that's what he brings to the plate. You know, it's not just a case of, you know, his ballet skills over here, or what you can say his martial arts sort of history. Because look at that. I mean, who can?
But is he a victim of his physical stature? Because he's such a big guy, they play him as a kind of a target man.
They do play him, yeah, I guess so. But
no, teams attempted to do
that.
But
he's got great mobility. He's happy.
Great shot, that isn't it?
You can leave him at the top, and he can do the job there. When he drops off like he's done for Sweden, he's done it very, very well, and he causes you problems all the time.
He can play any role, which in the forward line, which is what's so interesting for him. Perhaps maybe not on the wing.
What's your most positive goal or your best moment from?
Well, that's one of the great goals. We can't. Sami Khedira's goal, I thought, was a great team goal, and Danny Welbeck's goal showed tremendous skill.
Did he mean it?
I think he did mean it, for sure. I think he meant it.
Chris Waddle's been leading this battle.
As a striker, tell you what, the ball comes in the box, and if the ball's on your wrong side, you automatically turn, you try and get something on it, and you just try and...
But that's a training ground goal in a way.
You do. And who has it said? Rooney says he does it all the time in training. He does it all the time in training, and he said to him, why don't you... But he does it in training, and it comes up in a game, and it ends up in the back of the net, and you can't ask for any more than that. I tell you the other goal that we haven't spoken much about was the Polish goal.
Blasowski.
Yeah, what a goal that was. And it was the way they broke down the left for me, and then that strike. I mean, the moment he hit it, the moment he struck it, you thought, what a goal.
Great moment for the captain. And the headers of Shevchenko for Ukraine as well on the other side of the host.
Great. We've seen a lot of headers this year.
Time is coming to a close. Quickly, who wins and how? Luther?
England 1-0.
1-0, the good old 1-0. Mina Rzouki.
England 2-1.
Really? England 2-1? The Italian goes
I think the English will win as well, but 1-0 again.
3-0 England. Well, there we have it for the Eurozone. What a way to culminate. That's probably the kiss of death. The expectancy, the hype has grown inexorably in the media and for us as well. We're going for England to beat Italy on the Eurozone. Back next week. Join us at 10 a.m. Goodbye for now.